listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome.
Good afternoon or morning or wherever you are. We are so glad you're here today. It's going to be a show you're going to remember. I'm telling you, this lady is just going to share with you so much of growth, it's potential growth. But she's also just been a knock dead woman, just achieving. And so I think you're going to love her story, but you're also going to love her passion about her future and what she can make and change in her world, and certainly maybe even our world, your world. So let's get started, because I want you to hear every bit of this interview today. Now, my guest is Vanessa Dimitropoulos. Okay, Vanessa, how was it?
You got it. You got the O. You put the emphasis in the right place, and that was it. Dimitropoulos.
It's Greek. It's Greek. I'm from Texas. So there you go. Well, she has stepped away from acting in order to focus on the much larger life roles, which acting led her to experience. She's the founder of the Escaped Goat, a campaign with the mission to reform psychological abuse laws and education laws enforcement on the epidemic of an abuse that leaves no broken bones or bruises. She believes that psychological abuse laws need to be treated with the same criminal persecution as physical and sexual abuse, and that the United States needs to catch up to the progressive psychological abuse reforms implemented by the UK, France, Ireland, and Scotland. Vanessa grew up in Paramount, California, and received her BA in communications from Chapman University. She then owned and operated a children's dance company in San Diego with a student base of 300 little darlings. Yes. Oh my gosh. I just can't see you monitoring, covering all those 300. Of course, they weren't all in the same class, I'm hoping. Mm-hmm. Her next division, now she's had many adventures in her life, but the next one that I want to talk about brought her to New Orleans just a few days after the first anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. And we all remember Hurricane Katrina because we received a lot of the people from New Orleans up here as well. And we're a good 300 miles from New Orleans. But at the time, NOLA was a major film and TV hub, giving Vanessa the opportunity to follow her heart and finally pursue the career she had wanted since a child. Now, while she was in New Orleans, she was very busy. But one of the things I want to share with you is that she produced 2 web series and a short film, the latter of which won Best Drama at the Louisiana International Film Festival. Congratulations, my dear.
Thank you.
Vanessa has not completely left the film and TV industry. She is producing a feature film and developing a media company, which will showcase interviews, PSAs, and video books revolving around the subject of narcissistic abuse. When she is not producing, writing, and advocating or studying the martial arts with Krav Maga?
Krav Maga.
Oh boy, did I do that one good. Vanessa spends her time dancing, traveling, creating entrepreneurial concepts, and continuing her spiritual journey. Oh my gosh. Vanessa, are you breathing? Can you take a breath? Are you tired?
No, but you know what? You made it sound so beautiful. I thought, wow, whoever that is, I really like her story. And I go, oh, it's you, girl. It's you. I was so disconnected for the longest time, but it's affirming to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, to listen to you. See, I told you. You're very impressive here. All the things that you keep doing. But tell us about the narcissistic relationship that you were in, or the story that gave you so much passion to actually do something, change it.
Right. Okay. And I'll just kind of give you the nutshell. And for anyone who wants to read the full story, they can go to the website. It's The Escaped Goat that would be an email, theescapedgoat.com. And you can read under the My Escape tab, my story. Like most unsuspecting, people just looking for love.
Yes.
In what I thought was the right place. It was a very healthy, very evolved relationship, actually. And towards the end, just like we find out when you're the victim of a narcissistic abusive situation, it was an entire illusion. It was an illusion. And that led to a major event in my life that put my body into a state of flight or fight for over a month. I'd never experienced, I've seen some stuff. I mean, I grew up in a very rough neighborhood. I witnessed a shooting when I was 16 years old. I lost a lot of friends before the age of 18. I have
To
seen
death, you mean to death?
Death. Yeah, the girl that I witnessed, she was shot. She died the next day, and my neighbor died, and his best friend died. And after I got out of high school, I didn't go to funerals for about 15 years. I just was too traumatized. But
yes.
So I have seen some stuff, and and I know people can be cruel, but I had never seen the kind of malicious, calculative scheming in my lifetime. Maybe we might see that in like political arenas or in war and stuff like that, but I've never experienced that. And after that happened, I started digging into and finding out about this thing called narcissistic abuse. And as I was reading about it, I suddenly started seeing faces to these different roles that were played, like the matriarch and the flying monkeys. And I thought, oh my gosh, I know exactly who that was in this dynamic. And I know who exactly played that part. And it was almost like I was spinning, because everything that I read was my story. It was the exact same template. It was just somebody else telling it. And when I realized and started learning how many victims there were, I started interviewing victims. I realized not only was this a template, but there were millions of people that this had happened to. And I was publicly humiliated. I was set up. I was falsely accused. I was arrested. I'm still trying to get my charges dismissed. And then the people that did what they did to me, they sold my arrest video to TMZ. And I was suicidal, actually. And I begged TMZ not to release it because I was suicidal and I didn't know if I was going to be able to hold on. And TMZ did not care. And they released it on Christmas Eve.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I went offline. My birthday's New Year's Eve. So I hid out in Oregon with one of my best friends. And that January, when I got back to California, I just started piecing everything together. Like I wasn't this celebrity, but I was on a huge show. And if you pointed me out, you go, oh yeah, I remember that scene. And I remember that girl. And I thought, well, these people used my 11 years of hard work in that industry and tried to destroy me. And, I haven't worked since then. I don't even have an agent anymore. And I obviously was humiliated.
Right.
But I started thinking,
just for funds of sharing, what was the series that you were in?
So I was on The Walking Dead for a few episodes. I played a woman named Anna. I was in an Oscar-winning movie called The Big Short, which was about the financial crisis of 2008.
Oh, I do remember that. Who was the lead guy?
Christian Bale played the lead character.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I had a great scene with him.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
I need to go look that one up.
Yeah. And that is a great movie. I mean, it is a great movie. And I was the Goldman Sachs woman who thought that she was, getting one over on him, but didn't in the end. So yeah, I just kind of looked at everything and I thought, isn't it strange that I happen to be on this big show and these people did this to me. And then I learned about this, and I've always been fascinated with psychology. Oh, and I have a really big mouth, and you like to communicate. Maybe you're supposed to be the voice of the people who have suffered through this and are too afraid to come forward, because it always takes someone loud enough and I guess brave enough. I don't think we should have to be brave to call out something that is unjust, but in today's world, you're called brave if you speak up, right? As there's so much corruption and code of silence. And it all just kind of came to me. The name came one day. Everything just kind of fell into place. And it's been very difficult because it's triggering, of course, but it was like divine from God. It was like, here you go. You were only supposed to be on this show so that you could be the voice of this movement and encourage people to step forward and ultimately get some reformation of these laws going.
Well, if you will, let's talk about, explain to my listener, whoever she is out there today, that is maybe even in a narcissistic relationship and doesn't know what the signs are, and they're like the red flags that we get as series. How can she identify that, oh, this is what is causing the craziness in my world?
Yeah. So what's interesting about this abuse is that it's especially with a covert narcissist, it's not necessarily the typical flags you would see, like maybe someone, I don't know. I mean, I grew up in an abusive household, so it was very clear to see what was abusive. But with this, the flags aren't so evident. The partner seems to be very loving, very supportive. That's
how it starts out, right?
Yes. I mean, and it's almost overkill, but because we've watched all these fairy tales, we go, oh my gosh, this is literally everything I could have imagined. And I can't believe that I am so lucky that I was gifted this wonderful human being who you later find out that they were just emulating you. And they're very good at they're kind of chameleons or kind of angler fish. They emulate the emotion. So it's very hard to see because they're coming off as a very good person. Yes. So there are certain things that I found out later. Had I known, I would have been able to say, okay, that's what this is. For instance, something called crazy making conversation or word salad. When you confront your partner and say, hey, I'm noticing that we haven't been communicating and I feel like I'm kind of taking on more of the work around the house and I want to talk about that. And next thing you know, you feel like you've been tossed upside down in the ocean and now you're the bad guy and you're being accused of things. And the entire subject that you went in to discuss is nowhere to be found. They have twisted it and made you feel bad. And now you're the person that they have an issue with. So I actually went back into my journal because I didn't know what that was at the time, but I have journal entries like, I don't know what just happened, but everything got turned upside down and now he's mad at me. And so when you confront your partner with any sort of, concern or issue in your relationship, and suddenly they twist it on you, they distort it, and then they make you out to be the bad guy, that's called crazy making conversation. Another one would be, obviously our instinct is so important here because you might see or hear or experience something and you say something to your partner. I'm getting the feeling, that your sister doesn't really like me being around. And then your partner goes, oh, you're crazy. That's in your head. You're being insecure. Come to find out that sister not only didn't like you, but made it a point to make your life hell and tell everybody that you were things that you were not. And then that escalates into what's called a smear campaign. They also use a tactic called triangulation, where they basically try to pit your family and friends, if they can succeed at this, and their family and friends against you. And you don't know what's happening because to your face, everyone's just the nicest person. But then when you're around them, you sense something's right. But when you ask about it, you're told, no, silly. That's in your head.
Yeah. And you, all the time, your narcissist, which I was also married to a narcissist, is telling them stories that would turn them against you.
Yes.
Like she just wants everything. She's spoiled. She doesn't care about I'm working so hard.
Right.
Or she never wants to cook for me, or things like that would show him as the victim.
Right.
And not you, which you are the victim by all means because of the trash that he's putting out about you.
Right. And they don't just do it with family and friends. I mean, in my case, he did it at the institutions where he was getting his master's degree in counseling from, by the way. Oh. And yes. And he did it at the police station. He called on me at least 3 times. And then he edited videos to make it sound like I said things that I did not say. And this
that's really dirty.
Oh, yes. And when I've talked to other victims, I can't even exaggerate. I mean, there was a man whose wife was beating him up in the car while he was driving with their child in the back. And he stopped the car anyways. Somebody called the police, and it turns out that the wife went and punched herself in the nose so she could have a broken, bloody nose when the cops arrived and blame it on him. And the cops, not understanding how all this works, of course, arrested him. He lost custody of his child, and now he sleeps in his car.
Oh, sad.
It's very sad. Yeah.
You had some figures in your preparation for the interview of the growing number of narcissistic people. It's growing by leaps and bounds in our society.
I don't know if I could say that it's growing. I think it's being exposed.
Oh.
And the reason I think that is because we have means of exposure now, like the internet. Yes. It's very hard. I mean, that works on both sides, right? Like a narcissist could use the internet to smear you, slander, libel, dox you, all that stuff online. But at the same time, as we saw in a recent case with a celebrity couple, a lot of that behavior was, released out into the public. So now we can see it. I think as we understand what narcissism is, and as people start coming forward, I think we're just seeing what has always existed, but now we have a definition, we have a name, and we have a means of exposure. Because a lot of people, like such as yourself, I don't know how long you were married for, but I mean, that narcissist existed back when you got married. So it's been around. And just, I think it's really important that people understand this, because a lot of people throw the term narcissism around. Here's the thing. We all have narcissistic traits. It's part of our survival mechanism. We have to be concerned with our safety, right?
Right.
A narcissist is someone who is on the spectrum, meaning they are lacking empathy. So someone like Ted Bundy, clearly on the way end of the spectrum, had no empathy. Now, I might have some narcissistic traits. You might have, we all might have, but where is your empathy? And that is the question. So when a lot of, and I hear a lot of like 20 and 30 somethings kind of thrown around the term, oh, you're such a narcissist. And that's fine if you do feel that he really displayed those, behaviors and traits, but we got to be careful about how we use that term, especially if we're going to try to, you can't criminalize narcissism anymore than you can criminalize alcoholism. You can criminalize the behavior that is a result of those traits or personalities, like drunk driving. That's criminalized, but I can't sue someone for being an alcoholic. Right. So we do have to be careful with that. But yeah, I personally think that this last couple of years, there was this theme, and there's a lot of dark and light. There's a spiritual kind of warfare going on. And many of the people that I know that are healing, most of them went through some sort of narcissistic abuse. It's almost like this it's almost like this video game kind of level that you go through. It's like the worst level in the whole video game, but it's because God, source, whoever your higher power is, needs you to open up and wake up. You need to heal from your codependent traits, you know, so that you can live fully as your sovereign self. So therefore you can serve others. That is why we're here. So if you're suppressed by a narcissist, you're not living in joy, you know, which if you're not living in joy, how are you ever going to bring joy to others?
Right. Yeah. Right.
So that's just my thought. I mean, I think it's become a trending topic, but I think we also had so many more platforms where we could actually speak up and kind of expose narcissism for what it is.
Yeah, I like the idea that you think it's always been here and it's growing. No, it's more.
I think that there's an exposure.
Yeah.
But also we have the culture, right? Like people used to be good people, but there was always a bad seed in any community, going back civilizations, right? I mean, look at history. I think we've always had narcissism. I mean, look, it's a Greek myth, right? Narcissist stared so long at himself, you know, he fell in.
Yes, maybe that's when it started. Back in the pond, he was looking in the pond.
That's right. But we've come into a place right now where so many people are starting to recognize the lineage, their own family lineage of trauma and abuse. And how cycle after cycle, you either become the abuser or you continue to be the abused, unless you escape out of that and you are the scapegoat usually that gets out. And I think that as more and more people heal their codependent tendencies and come into their own power and understand their value, and they break away from that toxic family dynamic, which is difficult to do, right? Because family first, and that's your blood, and you got to stay. Well, I said, no, I'm not staying in anything abusive. As more and more people started to understand that you don't have to stay where you're not valued.
Right.
We have become awakened to the traits also of the narcissist. And if you've been through this and you have, you know, recognized the traits, more than likely, if you healed yourself, you're not going to fall for it again. You're going to see it for what it is.
You know, but the important thing I think that a woman needs to get help through is with a therapist to help her kind of understand what she's going through. And then there's the decision, do I stay or do I go? And you know, if you're single, it's easier to make that decision. If you're working, it's easier to make that decision. But there are women that have families and do not work outside of the home. Then they have to have that support system to help them make such a major change in their life. I had a friend call me, and we know each other for we studied with Jack Canfield back 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And she at that time was suffering, but she had 4 children. And she just called me about 2 months ago to tell me she's now leaving her narcissist.
Good for her. Good for her.
So there are also sorts of relationships that, you know, if you can't get out, you can't, but there's a way to live in that and somehow get the part of yourself back by seeing the therapist, somebody that can help you understand and make the transition. You know, it's tough.
It is tough. It's also tough and a sad fact that many therapists are also narcissists, just as many cops are narcissists, unfortunately. Any kind of authoritative position, you know, where there is a level of power. It's very easy for someone with a narcissistic palate per se to step into that role, because now they are in charge, they get to control, and they have access to your mind. In my experience, I mean, I work with a therapist and I've been lucky enough to meet a couple that had experience. My therapist is actually an expert in narcissistic abuse, but I cannot tell you how many victims I've spoken to that are distraught because even their therapist, yeah, it's a bad breakup. Breakups are hard. Like, no. Look, I am old enough to have been through some breakups. This was not a breakup. Okay. This was like a breakdown. So if the therapists themselves and because this is a trending topic, narcissistic abuse certification programs are now in place. I actually know a girl who's in one now. She's an LMFT, licensed marriage and family therapist. So she's adding that into her kind of, toolbox for her clients, but a lot of them don't know. So I've had a lot of fortune and luck working with healers who are spiritual healers who can tap into trapped emotions. I do a lot of EMDR tapping and sitting with EMDR. It's a reassociation of certain memories and images. So, for instance, the image of me being yelled at and dragged down the stairs by the cops obviously is extremely traumatizing. So it gives me major anxiety. I have OCD and I have PTSD, lots of physical stuff because of what happened. But when I reprocess it, I'm replacing it. Yeah.
That's a good thing to make note, listeners out there. If you are planning to go through with a therapist, then by all means, you need to choose carefully someone that you know through word of mouth that has worked with a person that is good. I think there's probably a board that you can go to, or you just word of mouth is the best, I think, from other people.
Word of mouth for sure. Yeah. There's also like check reviews. I know we're so desperate sometimes just to have human connection and someone understand us, but it can be very counterproductive. I had a therapist on one of the online app programs that exist literally scream at me during our session. And it turns out he's a former cop. I reported him. I'm on Quora. I do a lot of answering on Quora. And there is one space on there called Therapists Exposed, because again, this is your mind we're talking about, and these are human beings with tendencies. So do your homework, read the reviews, and, look, there's always going to be someone complaining about something. But if you see a pattern, you see 8 out of 10 people saying this person was a bully, probably not going to be helpful to your healing process. You know what I mean?
I found it sort of difficult to even talk to friends because the narcissist really comes out as a great guy. And sometimes sharing that information just fell on dead ears when you need a support, when you needed somebody to just listen, So there are all sorts of what do I want to call those? Little disappointments that you'll come through on your journey. They won't go, oh, I see that, because they can't see it, just like we couldn't see it.
Just like you, and it's funny that you bring that up, because when this initially happened, now I had some friends that were like, what the heck? Like, they believed me because, some of my friends I've had 30 and 40 years, actually. I've known them since kindergarten or high school.
But you're only 12.
Right. I can't believe it's like, I've been alive for 4 decades. This is weird,
It just gets better.
I think the greatest thing is like you care less and less about what anybody thinks. It's just the aches and the pains that I'm not looking forward to because I'm already feeling them, But one of the disappointments was not feeling supported, and I was so isolated because nobody understood. They thought, wow, she's really taking this breakup hard, and it was so frustrating. And I finally understood something that helped me. I realized that I was grateful that my friends didn't understand me, because it meant they didn't go through the hell that I went through. Because unless you go through narcissistic abuse, you do not, unless you were like side by side witness or you went through it, you do not understand it. I mean, there are friends who dropped me completely because they thought I had lost my damn mind.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles, whatever. But then I had other friends who just loved me to pieces and stayed and supported me. They didn't understand it, but they didn't shame me. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There are support groups online. Been There, Got Out is a great group. She's online and on Sundays, her name is Lisa Johnson. She and her partner, Chris, I want to say he does more of the behind the scenes stuff. I don't know if they do interviews together, but she has a legal abuse support group on Sundays where it's live, and it's not people just, I hate to say complaining and whining and venting, but look, at some point we need to do something about this. We can't sit here for the next 10 years. This happened to me. This happened to me. Okay, what are you going to do about it? Right. So she's got a great program. And then Tracy Malone and Lisa Romano and Jill Wise with the Enlightened Target. These are women who are specific narcissistic abuse coaches. On our website, theescapedgoat.com, there's an entire page of resources, books, websites, coaches. Go there. We even have a plan to help you get out, a safety plan. And Tracy Malone has one as well. Narcissist Abuse Recovery, I think is her website. Phenomenal website. So there are places, and I feel like if you're in this situation, explore those places while you take your time finding a therapist that really understands this, because it could do you more harm if they really are not versed on this subject.
I know there are a couple on YouTube as well that I've listened to. There's a doctor in Dallas that also does a lot of this work.
Dr. Carter? Is it Dr. Carter, the man?
I think so.
I love him. He's so, and I love his voice.
Yes. Very calming, isn't it?
Like your voice. Yes. You have a very calming, you know, that Southern genteel kind of, it's nice.
Oh, thank you. I've practiced so long to get this accent. Okay, but tell me, was it that story that pushed you over the edge, the story that you write in your book? And the book is
I haven't written my book yet. I haven't written my book.
Okay.
No, I'm working on the book. Yeah.
Well, you need to do that.
I'm working on it. Yep, I'm getting there. I was kind of pressuring myself. I'm a firstborn overachiever, you know, and a Capricorn. But yeah, it's got the triple whammy. But the thing is, I had to realize, like, look, this is so triggering, and I'm still in a couple of lawsuits. You know, I filed a suit against this woman for defamation, and I'm still in that. So it's been very traumatizing and re-traumatizing and triggering. Yeah. That being said, the more I heal inside, the more I've been able to kind of, expunge and purge that kind of dark energy that was inside of me and the pain. And now I have all this space and this light. So I'm able to get a little bit more objective about it. And I have this mission. Like, I mean, as a victim of narcissistic abuse, you rarely get closure. These people aren't going to come maybe on their deathbed. I don't know, but I'm not holding my breath. Right. Right. So what can we do for ourselves? Well, one, we can understand you're probably never going to get that closure, but I'll tell you this, I'm going to have the last word. And that word is going to be one that tells the story. It's going to encourage other people to tell their story, and understand that we are so powerful. And somewhere along that line, and especially if you were with a narcissist, your power was just, it was put out. Your light was diminished. You were made to feel so unworthy and so unimportant. And that is only because that's exactly how they felt. And they had to they're trying to switch roles with you, switch that power role. I was this light and he was always blown away. Wow, you've done so much. And you're so impressive. And by the end of it,
that's what I said, but I'm not a narcissist. I'm
right. And he only said it, and it was true, but he did that. And then later want to destroy everything that was good about me, and almost did, so it's so important. Like I learned I betrayed myself by, I knew when I saw things that were not right, I was making plans to go. And I got a cyst on my neck and I said, all right, this is in your body. You got to get the heck out of here.
Right.
They come in, they pick up on the fact that you're on your way out and they start sweet talking you, which is called hoovering, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to trust ourselves. We have to know our intuition is not going to steer us wrong. Our ego might, but our intuition will not.
Right. Yeah. But the mission is the escaped, ESCAPED, escaped goat. That's your mission.
That's the name of the organization. Hopefully
we'll do a,
yeah. The mission is to reform psychological abuse laws, educate law enforcement, and end the trauma and abuse cycle.
Educate law enforcement. Yes.
Yeah, see, they don't know. I mean, do you remember, obviously, Gabby Petito?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That was sad.
Yes, and there were signs that they didn't understand. So when they got there, they believed him. He was the first one to call, right? And she was a mess. When I saw her picture in the back of that car, I am not kidding you. All I could think of was when I was in the back of the car and I was sobbing, and my friend that was with me, she's holding me because I was so scared. I had never been arrested before. They were horrible to me in there. I mean, horrible.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying. And all because they didn't know what the 3 months leading up to that looked like. They didn't ask.
Right.
So it's so important. And until the laws are changed, law enforcement doesn't learn any new protocol. They only learn what they're supposed to enforce.
Right. Yeah.
And then
education.
Right.
Education.
And then families need to start understanding the cycle of abuse. We pass it on. If we do not heal ourselves, we project onto our children. Then our children don't like us for that. Then they rebel, and then they become the extreme opposite of what you were, and we got to come back to the center. Yeah. And that means we all have to hold ourselves accountable, and we have to heal.
So just moving on, what are you doing now? Because we're approaching the end of our time.
Okay.
But what are you doing now in your work toward the escaped goat?
At this very moment, I am, obviously doing some interviews and creating content, and I'm building a base. My goal at this moment is, and maybe there are listeners right now who can help with this, is we need to build a foundation, and so that we can put this call to action into order and eventually lobby and get these laws changed. I need help with publicity. I need help with lobbying. There are so many roles that need to be filled. And as of now, I'm the only one doing it. Yeah. And I decided my niche isn't to be a coach. There are wonderful coaches, like I mentioned before. Mine is more, I have always been kind of the very brave, the loud mouth. Hey, this isn't right. I'm the defender, warrior type of personality.
Have you discussed with any of those coaches the possibility and how they might build the escaped goat?
Yes, we've talked about it, and I think that I think that in the future we will be able to collaborate, whether it's I can do some media production. I'm working on a documentary also.
Oh, that's great.
What needs to happen is we first need to show how many people are experiencing this. So for instance, on our website, there's a Take Action tab. There is a form you can fill out to tell your story. You can do it anonymously. You can have a different name. I proofread everything and then I publish it on a blog, but we need to show the numbers. We need to show that it's worth the court's time and the judicial system's time to enforce laws, first create and implement laws that are going to protect people from this. And we can't do that without showing. And one thing I've noticed in this community, because you get cut so deep, it's visceral, it's cellular. A lot of people don't want to take action. A lot of people want to sit and just talk about it. And while I know that that's important, I want to prevent this from happening to other people. which
Right.
means I need to use some of my lifetime to make sure people not only know my story, but the story of others, that there are enough numbers, there are enough complaints being filed that all happen to say the same exact thing. Then we got something, you know? So if anything, if anyone has that story, please, you know, go on our website, fill out that form. If you're interested in being interviewed by me, I'm lining those up. If you're interested in the documentary, let me know. You can email me. It's truth.escapegoat@gmail.com or truth@theescapedgoat.com. It's on our website.
Is it on the website?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And the website again is what?
www.theescapedgoat. I keep saying at Gmail. I don't know why I'm doing that. theescapedgoat.com.
Yes. Well, Vanessa, I mean, you have really started something here. You're right. We need to take more action because it's becoming more and more prevalent in relationships. And if we all stay silent, then it'll continue, won't it?
It will. And the last thing I just want to add on is when we recognize our own value and we act according to that value, the narcissist cannot last. They will fall off. Eventually, they won't even approach us because you will be so sovereign at that point. It's almost like this force field is around you. You're so protected that the narcissist, this has actually happened to me, where they tried to come in and they saw what kind of a force they were dealing with and they weren't going to be able to handle it. So they tucked their tails and on their way they went.
Well, I'm with you. I just think you're doing a wonderful job. I think it needs to be taken on. And I'm so glad you're willing to do that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this. I appreciate the time and the platform, and you're just such a very kind person. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
You are. And my grandmother's name was Joyce.
No wonder, another Joyce. Most of us are grandmothers. Joyce.
Yes, but I do know in my generation, I know a couple Joyces, you know, so yeah. One, she's about maybe 6 years younger than me, Joyce. She's a doctor, pediatrician. Yeah. Some of the names from then are kind of coming back now, you know.
I like the name. I have no problem with it.
It's a great name. It's a strong name. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you very much for being on this podcast and sharing your message. It's a strong message and needs to be shared.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Okay, listeners, I want to say this. If you have a friend that's struggling, you know, I always give you an assignment, don't I? But you are the ears that heard the message today. You're the one that can share it. And I know there's somebody in your group that is suffering and needs to hear confirmation that this really is not, she is not going crazy, that this is partly what's happening to her, what's causing her world to tumble, and she's finding just life very hard to do. And we know that we're put here to live our greatness, not to live in fear. So I do hope that you will share this. And then I do hope you will be here with us next week as we listen to another woman that has taken her journey and has come out more committed to make a change in the world, or just simply to be who she is. Thank you for being here today. And I look forward to seeing you next week. All right. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.